Greetings, Bowtie Guide 5 here, and today we are discussing men's suits, specifically the history of men's suits. Now, to talk about the history of men's suits as we know today, we need to look at their predecessor, and that takes us to 17th century England, and I am talking about King Charles II specifically. Part of the restored monarch of England, Charles II established a sartorial standard of dress for the high courtmen, and this consisted of a long dress jacket and knee-high breeches, a waistcoat, which was called a petticoat at the time, and wig of course, and this was usually a matching pair. Sometimes the vest would be a different color than the rest of the suit. The jacket itself was made of sturdy, luscious fabrics. You had brocade, lots of different kind of decoration and embroidery. You had decorative buttons. This was definitely a style of dress for somebody of nobility. And this style also made its way into the Regency area, and we are now talking about the early 19th century. You had British dandies like Beau Brummel who were redefining this style and adapting it to all of well-to-do British men, as opposed to just the high courts. We were starting to see more of a simplistic, streamlined style of dress. Somber colors were starting to be introduced. And what they did is now you have like darker jackets, charcoals and grays and blacks, as opposed to the brighter colors, the reds and the blues and the pastels. And they would contrast this with the vest. The vest would be like a lighter color, an off-white, something like that. And then you would have the cravat, which is a precursor to the necktie, would be like of a pastel color. This is also indicative of some post-French Revolutionary styles. These styles were predominantly upper-class clothing. Brummel himself was a day-to-day wearer of this style, and now we're getting into more tailored fits, as before like the long jackets would just kind of hang, and it didn't give much of a silhouette. Now we have different cuts, we're getting into shapes, we're getting definition, we're getting tailored pieces to each individual. We're moving away from the knee breeches, and now we're getting into long trousers. So a lot of fun things happening with men's clothing. Now, moving on from the Regency area to the Victorian era, we're now getting definitions of standard of dress. There's certain styles of dress for every occasion. I discussed this in my former wear mini-series. You have the tuxedo comes about, tail suits, that's reserved for like evening wear. During the day you have morning wear, morning jackets, which was cut a little differently than the traditional jacket of before. And the like I said, they call it the morning jacket because it's reserved for morning formal wear. You may still see this style in England. There's some certain formal occasions, traditional kind of events, where you still see this style of dress, especially amongst nobility and again higher class societies. Now we're getting away from the cravat, we're moving into the necktie. Now before this style of dress you just had kind of the high collar, imperial collar that came up. Now we're getting different styles of collars with our shirt. We have the wing collar with the formal wear, and now you have a turn down collar or lay down collar or a point collar, which is now being seen with the ties. Before, with the cravat, it was kind of encompassing around the neck, so you needed the high collar, so you could have that there. Now with the necktie, it's a much smaller knot, and it kind of drapes the torso, so we can have different styles of collar. Not to say that the high collar wasn't still a thing, but we're starting to get into different styles of collars. Now some of these styles, if anybody is familiar with the show Downton Abbey, you're going to see a lot of this style of dress. And I love this show because it's a great example of where men's fashion has come over the years. Okay, so moving away from the Victorian era and into the Edwardian era. This is around the early 20th century. The morning coat, we're starting to see a decline in the morning coat. It's more reserved for formal occasions, and it's not so much a day-to-day coat everybody's wearing as they were before. We're now getting into different styles of jackets, short jackets, kind of like what I'm wearing here. I'll stand up so you can see. Now before the morning coat or the long coat, it would come past the knee, it would start to taper kind of where mine is now, and it would continue its way down, and it would hang down below the knee. Now we have short jackets that stop around the thigh area, usually about fingertip length or so, maybe a little shorter than that. And we're starting to get away from the morning dress look with the separate vest and the separate pants. We're now getting into a return to all the matching pieces. The three-piece is still popular at the time. You have the vest and the jacket and the pants, all in coordination with one another. And this shorter coat, also referred to as the Prince Albert coat, starts to become the standard of daily dress outside of formal wear. We're also getting away from the formal hats at this time. You had top hats, and now we're moving into bowler hats and more shorter and more informal styles of hats. Straight leg trousers, we're getting more into different styles of cuffing on the pants, and different styles of pants, which I discussed in my pants mini-series. Now this style remained popular during World War I and throughout the 30s, the Depression era, you know, the three-piece suit. Now the double-breasted style starts to come about at this time, and we're getting into different cuts and different fits as we continue on into the 40s and on through the war. The war is very influential on styles of men's suiting, because the men, you know, they're off at war and they're used to certain kinds of fit with their military uniform, and they start looking for this coming back from the war. So now we're having like double-breasted styles coming about. We're getting away from the vest. You have, like, I don't have a double-breasted myself, but I'm going to be showing some different examples of the styles that I've discussed in this video later on. But it kind of comes across, it gives a different kind of shape. And then in the 40s you have the zoot suits that come about, and they're like a very like boxy, kind of loose fit. You have a longer wide leg trouser, and they're very stylized. You start getting into like the drastic pinstriping and different bold colors. The peak lapels are becoming very popular. The lapels extend out toward the top, and the jackets were oftentimes double-breasted, and you had a very loose, kind of loose fit, so it gave a different kind of silhouette. Now, moving into the 50s and the 60s, a big departure from that. We're getting now into more back to the cut and more tailored pieces. Thin lapels, you're starting to notice like thin lapels, thin ties, very just streamlined, very cookie cutter. We're getting away from a lot of color. Things are be kind of safe and kind of muted. This continues into the 60s a little bit. Now, at this time, there's also a movement anti-establishment movement coming about, and some more casual styles are starting to creep their way into the daily wear. So a lot of kids at this time, they're adapting jeans, which are becoming very popular, t-shirts, and more casual shirting is finding its way into the mainstream, and the suit is starting to slowly take a back seat to that, where before the suit was seen as like a daily thing. Now, so we have before the morning suit starts to take a back seat to the suit. Now the suit we see is starting to take a back seat to these other styles. Now as we move into the 70s, there is a return to some wider styles. Very big, wide lapels, wide collars, big knot ties, wide ties were becoming the big fashion. A lot of celebrities and even in like film and TV, Saturday Night Live is a big example of that with the wide lapels. We're getting back into the vest again. The vest kind of took a back seat to the double breast and the 2-button notch lapel jacket. Now we're getting back into the vest. So that's kind of fun. These were kind of also known as leisure suits or lounge suits. They were usually a poly blend. You had some, we're starting to return to color as well. You're getting into like browns and burgundies and just some really bold, just pops of color. So it's kind of, interesting to see over the years how the styles adapt and kind of hark back to certain eras of dress in terms of little key differences. Now in the 80s, we move into a more serious, more structured business wear, also known as like the power suit, power tie. It was all about big business, and we move away from the vest again. We're getting back into the double-breasted look, and very just traditional colors, navies and charcoals and blacks, solids and pinstripes, just very streamlined, very almost like the 50s, very cookie cutter styles. And again, as we move on, the more casual styles of dress continue to find their way into the mainstream, but the suit is still considered a regular standard of dress, at least amongst the working world and certain formal occasions and things like that. As we move into the 90s, we start to get a return to some of that looser fitting ideas of the 40s. We're getting into 3-button jackets, 4-button jackets, different longer fits of jacket again, looser fitting pants, wide leg pants are starting to find their way a little bit. You're getting kind of that looser kind of fit. Things are not tailored, but not quite as like form-fitting. You're getting more of like a relaxed fit, and that continues as we move into like the casual dress in the workplace. And then of course we have the suit now. What's popular now is I've noticed a lot of separates, a lot of mixing and matching. That is something that really popularized throughout the 50s and on. You're starting to get like different, you starting to get into different styles of jackets and then pants. They don't necessarily have to match, which is funny because that's kind of how they were dressing earlier on, as we discussed. But now we're actually getting like pieces that are intentionally sold as separates, and also you're getting like suits that are being de-nested where you can get different sizes, and whereas before everything was kind of a standard size and then you would be measured and tailored, now we're getting into different styles of dress. And I'm noticing now a lot of mixing and matching, people mixing jeans and jackets and different things like that, different styles of dress shirting. We're getting away from neckwear a lot in the workplace, more kind of casual, subdued styles. Lots of pops of color, finding the right back again. So again, like I said, it's interesting to see how some of the styles kind of recirculate in one form or another. So that is just a discussion on men's suiting, the history. As always, like and subscribe at the bottom, and until next time.